Welcome back to Lily's Antidepressant Life, where I share stories and perspectives from my journey with depression as my personal tour guide. My goal is for this podcast to be a safe place to share the hard stuff we go through while experiencing depression. I want you to know that you're not alone in this odd adventure that you didn't sign up for. There are a lot of us out here, and just think of the strength we'd have if we banded together. Today I wanted to share some of my visual reminders that I use to bolster my self-confidence. Here is a necklace. I don't know if you will get it to show. This is something that my school handed out to all the teachers during the pandemic, and it says, "I can do hard things." It's a pretty strong message. I also have an affinity for t-shirts. This one says, "I am blessed, happy, fearless, grateful, fierce, awesome, and strong." Okay, this one says, You are enough. Kind, tough, powerful, loved, valued, strong, bold, brave, smart, and capable. These just give me a little extra oomph in the day. And then this one's one of my favorites. It says, you see it? Unapologetic. It's an adjective. Not acknowledging any negativity or expressing regret for being a badass. I love this. So, let me ask, how many self-blamers are out there right now? I'm guessing a lot. Seems like there are two distinct camps of people. Those who blame anyone but themselves and those who automatically blame themselves first. I fall into that second category. If there is any blame to be cast, I throw the net firmly around myself. Even when there is no blame to assign, I will usually find a way to make it my responsibility somehow. Obviously, this is not the best trait to have when surrounded by people who lash out with blame before any inner reflection can occur. And I have a talent for attracting that kind of personality, like a superconducting magnet. I've had nearly every kind of relationship possible with that kind of narcissistic personality. Work relationship, romantic, and friendship. It's a extremely difficult personality to deal with for us, self-blamers, because they want to blame anyone but themselves. And I am super quick to accept any and all blame. Do you see how that can feed depression and anxiety? So, with a lot of deep inner reflection and lots of professional help, I've been able to identify some of the key early experiences that help shape this emotional trait in me. Please remember, I am not a professional psychiatrist. I don't have specialized training, and I don't conduct research studies about this topic. I'm just a normal person battling along the front lines with you of depression and anxiety. So the things that I share are deeply personal and aren't meant to mirror anyone else's experiences. So I am the youngest child in my family. I have two older siblings that I get along with really well. My parents are great. I can't complain at all about my formative years. We didn't experience neglect or hardship. We were well fed, cared for, and grew up in a strong, loving family. But there was one regular occurrence that definitely helped mold my tendency to blame myself, and it revolved around car sickness. For as long as I can remember, I get motion sickness. As I've grown up, it has abated quite a bit, and I now have coping mechanisms to help me try to avoid problems. But as a child, I didn't understand why I had motion sickness or how to prevent it or even to spot the early signs of it happening. Now, I'm 54 and grew up in the 70s and 80s, so all I can say is this. It was a different time back then. We didn't have seatbelts in the back seat. I loved sitting on the hump seat in the back seat that was in the middle. I'm sure I had to sit there because I was the littlest, but I would happily sit on that hump and I would hug my knees to my chest so I'd rock and roll around with every turn. I remember sitting in the back of the station wagon too, where the seats in the back, I don't know if y'all have ever seen this, but they pop open, but then they're facing side to side. Or sometimes they're facing the back, which both are terrible things for people with motion sickness, but we didn't know. We just didn't know back then. So I'd be rolling around in the car, sometimes facing backwards. That's no wonder I would get car sickness. Now we know so much more. So I can look back with that 20/20 hindsight and say, what were we thinking? But life is never as easy or clear cut as that. And as I was just a child, I'm sure I can't even remember my earliest experiences of car sickness because I was so young. I couldn't recognize what was happening in my body, and I couldn't articulate what my body needed to keep its equilibrium, mainly because I didn't understand it myself. So I've shared that my youngest son is autistic. Well, my oldest son has characteristics of autism. If he was born nowadays, he would just be described as being on the spectrum, which would be better. But when he was little, he tested too high in verbal communication, and we were told he was not autistic, just that he exhibited some characteristics of autism. So my oldest son, B, is 7.5 years older than my youngest son, J. And what was incredible for me as a parent was that B understood what it felt like to be on the spectrum. He wasn't walking in Jay's shoes, but he had enough understanding to be compassionate. Why was this awesome? Because he could offer me insight that I didn't automatically have. I already knew a lot of the tricks with sensory sensitivities. I have 3 children. They were all very sensory sensitive. I knew that clothes that weren't made out of cotton were itchy and that attached tags were torture and loud noises were startling. But I remember walking through the grocery store one day and baby Jay started wailing like he'd been hurt. I hunted all around his tiny body, thinking maybe he had gotten pinched sitting in the cart or the plastic seat had a tear in it that was cutting his skin, but I couldn't find anything wrong. B was the one who said, "Mommy, it might be the lights." I looked up at the grocery store lights with confusion. Well, they aren't that bright in this store, I said, knowing that, grocery stores have super bright lights, and sometimes they can even give me a headache. And B, with his very young wisdom, instructed me, "No, it's the sound, Mommy. It's awfully loud." I stopped and listened, but I couldn't hear anything. Well, wait. Maybe there was a tiny little teeny electric buzz. I could barely hear it when my attention was drawn to it. It was nearly non-existent to me. But to Jay, the noise was painful enough to cause him to cry with discomfort. B knew perfectly well it was there, but was able to continue on and function without a problem. B helped bridge the gap when I couldn't see what was going on. I needed a little bit of wisdom. Instead of immediately thinking I'd done something wrong to my child, I need someone to say, "Hey, Look around instead. So, back to me getting car sick. I couldn't blame anyone for the fact that I got motion sickness. No one caused me to be this way. No one else in my family has this problem. So it was a complete mystery to them. They didn't understand the physics responsible for motion sickness. I didn't have a bee in my life to say, hey guys, listen to the fluorescent lights. So I would get car sick. And who had to help me when this happened? My older siblings. And they were not happy about it. I mean, who would? I wouldn't have enjoyed that role. And they would get annoyed and upset with me. They'd complain that I ruined their jacket or their clothes or just their sublime happiness. And I can't blame them. They were just children too. I can't look back and hold them to the standards that my adult brain now holds. They were understandably upset. But here's where the key switch happened in my brain. Because I got motion sick when no one else in my family did, and then I forced my families into a caregiving role they were too young to accept, I turned to self-blame. Kids are usually black and white thinkers. Something bad happened because of me. My siblings were upset with me. So in my kid's brain, that translated into, it's my fault. I accepted self-blame, even though it was a faultless situation, even though I had zero control over what was happening. You could say, even though I was a victim getting physically sick, I felt guilty. I blamed myself, and this has shaped me. Self-blame is not an easy path to travel. It is full of guilt and shame and self-loathing. And the root that grows from self-blame is the expectation that bad things will happen because I deserve it. And that's so not true. I hope you don't feel that way, because it's so not true. No one deserves bad things to happen. Have you ever thought that something ridiculously bad is just what you deserved? I certainly have. I can give you a pretty good ridiculous example. One day I went to a donut shop and I bought myself 2 donuts. It was a really big indulgence for me at the time. On the way home, this is going to sound super strange, I know, but a dog hit my car. Yes, you heard that right. The dog hit my car, not the other way around. I was stopped at a stop sign when this huge dog came barreling out of nowhere and ran right into the side of my car. I wasn't even moving when it happened, but it hit me so hard that it left a little dent in the car door. I jumped out to go check on the dog, but it had run off. Some teenagers were sitting nearby, and they both just waved me away, saying, it's not the first time that particular dog had run into a car, and it was a habit, apparently, but I went home really shaken. I felt guilty. No, it wasn't my fault, but that didn't matter. I blamed myself. And what's worse, I blame myself, this is going to sound crazy, for being so selfish by getting donuts for myself that I caused something bad to happen in the universe. This might sound ridiculous to some people, but I'm guessing that there's going to be other of you that are going to understand me perfectly. And do you know what? I never ate those 2 donuts. I threw them away. Perfectly good food. Can you believe it? That's how strong self-blame can attack the psyche. Not only did I blame myself for the incident, I also punished myself for it. So in my little world, faultless just doesn't exist. Well, it didn't exist. If it wasn't obviously the fault of someone else, then of course it had to be my fault. I wasn't good enough. I didn't try hard enough. I'm just stupid or careless or just deserve to have something bad happen. None of these things are true. And when I say it out loud, I know how it sounds. But that is the constant running script in a self-blamer's head. There's any way to blame ourselves, we are going to do it. Not because we're looking for sympathy, but because we've been trained to think that way. And what is worse, there is usually not any direct person to blame that training on. It is a script that develops all on its own. Here are some facts. Motion sickness is a physical ailment. It's related to the proprioception sense that lets us understand our body in space. Motion sickness is beyond anyone's control. It is not a matter of mind over matter. Motion sickness is no one's fault, and certainly not mine. It took me a long time to know that one. I know it now, but as a child, I felt guilty for not being able to control the uncontrollable. I upset my siblings. I made a mess. I felt physically weak and unenergetic afterwards. I just felt horrible about it, about something that was completely beyond my control. I wish that I had known about the power of switching but to and back then. What a difference that would have made. It would have switched the phrases that were branded in my brain from, I get motion sick, but I upset everyone when I do, to, I get motion sick, and it upsets all of us. Both statements are true. It's not my fault. I'm not responsible for things out of my control. Self-blamers are constantly getting entangled in what I call the stupid trap. Now, as a preschool teacher, you must understand that I don't use the word stupid lightly. In the world of early childhood education, stupid is a swear word. It's the S word that is prohibited from being used in the classroom. But when things go wrong, which inevitably will happen in real life, where there is a constant roller coaster of good and bad things because we don't live in a linear plane, self-blamers will think we get what we deserve because we are just stupid. It's ridiculous. It's not productive. Calling myself stupid is just stupid. Just like when the dog ran into my car, and I punished myself by throwing away the donuts. Did that help anything? No. Big N, big O, no. Self-blame wasn't the answer to anything. It wasn't my fault. I was not to blame. But as a self-blamer, that is my default. It's my factory setting. It's my fault when something goes wrong in the universe because I am somehow stupid. But the truth is that bad things sometimes happen, and they don't have to be anyone's fault. It was not the fault of my 3 or 4-year-old self for getting car sick as I rolled around on the back seat without a seatbelt because nobody knew better. And it was not my fault my siblings got upset. It was a no-fault, lose-lose situation. Thinking to myself that I am stupid or to blame or somehow deserving of bad events happening is so sabotaging. It sets me up to feel a constant sense of failure. It also sets me up to accept the blame for things that have no fault. So, how can we fight this? Self-confidence. I'm sure a lot of you are laughing at that right now. Most self-blamers have very little self-confidence. So how can that be a weapon to protect ourselves? Well, I have discovered that it's not a matter of maybe I should increase my self-confidence. Two, it is an imperative need to raise my self-confidence. Want to know why? Because there is a good chance that no one else is going to do it for us. Several months ago on my website, lillystrong.com, that's Lily with 3 L's, Lilly, I wrote a blog called Profound Wisdom from a Taylor Swift Song. In it, I discuss how symbols of our empowerment can be instrumental in our lives. This is incredibly true for me. Just like my necklace and my t-shirts that I shared earlier, I also have a bracelet I pretty much wear daily. It's a silver band and it has the words I am etched on the inner edge, right where I can see it every time I pick up my hand. It's right there for me to see. This bracelet is very special to me. My cousin got it for me when I was going through a life-changing event. It was a time where I felt full of shame and self-loathing, a time where I was floundering, not able to find stable ground to stand on. My cousin knew it was a time I desperately needed self-confidence, but she couldn't stand guard over my ego 24/7. I wasn't able to lean into my own understanding either. I needed a boost. So when I take my bracelet off, there are more words printed on the inside. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but it says, well, the full statement says, I am a beautiful effing badass. I wear this every day. To me, it is a constant reminder that I am a badass. I am confident. I'm empowered. I do not have to self-blame for things that are beyond my control. By the way, I'm not stating that I'm beautiful, so please don't send me comments telling me how ugly I am. That's not good for a person struggling with depression. Instead, I mean, I have a beautiful, badass attitude that can lead me down the path to self-confidence. So I don't need my cousin to whisper this into my ear every day because I have this visual right before my eyes at all times. I don't need a support group to come to my aid every time I feel a little down, although my support group is my lifeline. But I'm able to function and move forward in a life less full of self-blame because I have a solid reminder of my abilities, a push in my confidence. I am a beautiful effing badass, and no one can take that away from me. And you are too, my friend. We are badasses together. Do you ever blame yourself when you know it's not your fault? Maybe it would be a good idea to have a visual reminder that you are powerful. It doesn't have to be a bracelet or a t-shirt. Make a homemade sign. Hang brightly colored post-it notes from your mirror with little positive phrases on it. Make a collage, an art collage of things you find out on a nature walk to remind you of your inner strength. My visual reminder has helped me through many dark times. It's like having a big brother around to tell me that maybe the problem isn't me, maybe it's the fluorescent lights above. I just need to look clearly, and everything's going to be all right. Remember that if you are ever feeling really hung out on the limb of depression and you need help, you can always call the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline in the U.S. at 988. That's just 3 numbers, 988. If you want to read some of my blogs, my website is lillystrong.com. That's Lily with 3 L's, LILLYSTRONG. I just started a new series, and it's called Unveiled Narcissistic Abuse. And the full transcript of this podcast will be posted on my website as well. If you're enjoying my podcast, I encourage you to subscribe. I said that funny. I encourage you to subscribe so you know when new episodes drop. I'm new here, so every subscriber, comment, or like is super special to me, and I'd love to hear what topics you're interested in hearing about. So until next time, have a great week and take care of yourself, my beautiful effing badass friend.